1, 2, 3, 4.
Screen time, screen time, screen time, screen time.
It's my screen time too.
Screen time, screen time, screen time.
Hello, and welcome to It's My Screen Time Too, the podcast where we review the programming the other critics ignore, stuff made for kids. Find out what to watch for family movie night, what to avoid altogether, and what you'll want to watch alone voluntarily. I'm Katie.
And I'm Deborah.
And I have two kids, ages 9 and 6.
And today we are reviewing the film Flow. We're reviewing it because we're in that period of time when tons of Oscar-nominated movies are becoming available to stream. Flow has gotten a lot of critical praise, and we were curious because it doesn't come from one of the big studios. It actually won a Golden Globe for Best Animated Feature against other movies that we've reviewed over the past 12 months, like Inside Out 2 and Wild Robot. Here's a brief description of the movie. It's a Latvian film that premiered at Cannes in May of 2024, and it made it to theaters in the United States around November and December of 2024. It's produced by Janus Films, runs 1 hour, 25 minutes long, which is the perfect length for a children's movie, in my opinion. It's rated PG, directed by Gintz Zilbalotis, and Wikipedia notes that the movie is notable for being completely rendered on the free and open source software Blender. A statement that we don't understand, but might factor into our conversation. Here's the plot summary according to IMDb. Cat is a solitary animal, but as its home is devastated by a great flood, he finds refuge on a boat populated by various species and will have to team up with them despite their differences.
All right, here's the big question. Did you like it?
I sure did. How about you?
Me too. It was so quiet and contemplative, but at the same time, it didn't feel heavy-handed, like it was trying to drive a larger point across. I just loved the vibes.
Totally. I went in with no expectations. I didn't realize it had no dialogue. I didn't realize the animation was going to be like it was Wild Robot-esque in its beauty, I thought. Yeah, I had no expectations, so I was very pleasantly surprised.
I'm also a cat person, and I'm raising little cat people, so, that hooked me immediately.
For sure.
So lay it on me if you can think of any reasons why this might not be for grown-ups.
I mean, probably just the fact that it's animated would make some grown-ups not want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe because it doesn't have dialogue. But for me, I think it's totally an appropriate film for grown-ups.
Yeah, the two sticking points that I could think of were, we mentioned that it was all done using an open source software, computer animation software, and we have talked sometimes in this space how we just both tend to prefer a more realistic look in terms of animation, and while the water and the naturescapes in this movie are rendered very realistically, the characters, I mean, you can just see from the jump they're computer animated characters. So if that visual style is just so immediately off-putting to you, I could see that being a small issue, although obviously it was not for either of us.
Yeah, for the animation connoisseurs with distinct preferences.
Yes. I know when I started saying this, I said there were two reasons why I thought it would not be for grown-ups, but I honestly think that might be the only one.
Mm-hmm.
So why is this for grown-ups?
It's a great plot, and it's got a bunch of really lovable characters.
Mm-hmm.
And when the floodwaters came the first time, I was like, oh no, is this about climate change?
I was really worried about you too. I
think it is. So there's this book that I've been reading called Islands of Abandonment by Cal Flynn that's like trying to, I don't know, it like simultaneously recognizes that like wild spaces are being destroyed, but then she's like also looking for what will be the new wild spaces. And so like finding hope in destruction and devastation, and I kind of thought this did that.
Oh, like wild spaces just because they're no longer going to be
Well,
inhabitable
she
by.
like takes a trip to like the Chernobyl area
Hmm.
and looks at how like people aren't supposed to live there, but wildlife is like really flourishing.
Hmm.
It's not just like a nuclear wasteland.
Right. Just because it's no longer a place where we can live and destroy things doesn't mean that
Mm,
other things can't live and flourish.
right.
I love that message of hope because we need hope right now. All right. Should we get into the weeds, do you think?
Sure.
Okay. Were there any character standouts for you? Was there anyone that you particularly loved or hated?
Okay, the capybara was a favorite.
Uh huh.
I have a question for you. Are some of the okay, like I wasn't sure if the big bird and the whale were real creatures from the real world or are they like fantastical creatures?
All right. I'm glad you brought this up. I think, just in conversation with Kevin, who is the only other adult that I watched this movie with or have discussed this movie with, the whale was a fantasy creature. I think.
That's what we thought too, but I didn't like research it.
No, nor did I. No, We are really laying all the groundwork here. Did you feel as possibly as irrational a dislike of all other dogs who were not the golden retriever or yellow lab that was like the primary dog? I so hated those other dogs.
Oh, I mean, if I had been in that boat and saw the dogs on that little statue island, I might have been like, I would have done what the bird did,
No,
probably.
you're going to upset our dynamic. You guys all seem like selfish jerks.
Yeah, and they
They
were.
really were.
I'm not sure I would have, I definitely wouldn't have risked my own life to save them from the boat in the tree.
Right. But, Cat was also, oh, spoiler, Cat was also saving the other animals that were actually his friends. So the fact that he was saving the dogs, I guess, side Benny for the dogs, even though they didn't deserve it.
Hmm.
Cat as a protagonist, I loved, frustrating in all the ways that cats are, a little too self reliant, a little too slow to trust. There were definitely moments during the movie that I was like, just stop it and accept the help. And
Hmm.
I very much recognized all those cat like behaviors. So I was both frustrated and I loved Cat because of it.
Those are all good points.
So, we should say, listeners, for those of you who have not seen Flow, and I imagine many of you haven't because it's a small film, it's a foreign film, and it might just not be on your radar. It is kind of a found family narrative between these animals of different species who are brought together by an emergency situation. So, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to list the animals that we have. What do you think, Deborah?
Sure.
Okay, so we have cat, we have capybara, we have lemur, we have big white bird who we did not recognize, and we have dog who is either a yellow lab or a golden retriever. Did you fall down one way or the other on that one?
Yes, I thought golden retriever.
Golden retriever. Okay, that's where Kevin went to, but I wasn't 100% sure. And they all come together to live together in kind of an uneasy, but then eventually a really comfortable relationship in this flood environment.
Hmm.
Are there any other characters that you wanted to point out as specifically resonating or resonant with you?
No, I don't think so. I think you got them all.
All right, well, talk to me about the writing. What did you think?
I thought the story was really well paced. I had a bunch of questions because when we meet Kat, Kat is living in a house that the human is not there, and there are all these different sized cat statues and like a statue in progress. So, I mean, I think it's safe to say the statues might be of Cat. Cat was maybe like living in this environment where Cat was like worshipped,
Oh,
like a prized pet. And so then Cat has to, like, not only has Cat experiencing this natural disaster, but Kat also has to go from like living in a palace where their every need is met to like living in this little sailboat. Like, I don't think Kat's never caught a fish before.
Right, right. And also worth noting, no humans in this story, right? Like, it's obviously devastation has happened, human
Hmm.
civilization is wiped out, and we see evidence of humans, but it's not like we're seeing the gruesome, like, there aren't like bodies piled everywhere at any point.
Right. So I wanted more backstory, but I got, I mean, that's just like my curiosity. I didn't think that the script was lacking. I thought it gave us plenty to work with.
Right. And it was definitely, I don't know if you felt the same way, but at the beginning, I was thinking, I want more. I want to know more about the backstory. Who is this person in this house? Where are all the people? Where did this flood come from? Blah, blah, blah. But then just the kind of relentless, soothing progression of the film just kind of washed all of those larger
Yeah.
concerns away. And I was just like surrounded by this generally calm, unperturbed tone.
Hmm. Yeah.
Were you at all annoyed by the fact that there wasn't a traditional propulsive plot that we see with many movies and shows for kids? It was essentially just a series of vignettes where things happened. Yes, you mentioned the incident with the boat that comes toward the end, but those weren't necessarily the things that moved the movie forward. It was so clearly just about Kat's emotional journey as opposed to what is happening to them in the real world.
I was to make a pun, I was just
Yeah.
swept away by it. I didn't really have any quibbles with the
Okay.
structure.
Okay. What about the look of the movie? I did mention that, it looks like a computer generated movie. We've had our quibbles with that on and off over the course of this podcast, but it sounds like you, like me, were so taken with the larger narrative that it didn't bother you.
Yeah, so I thought that the animals looked very much like White Fang. Remember that movie?
Yes. Oh, how could I forget Raisin Cadaver Paul Giamatti?
So I wonder if that movie was made with the same
Oh.
software,
Hmm.
because it almost has a look like a rotoscoped look.
Okay, yeah, because the renderings of the facial expressions, particularly on the animals, were really naturalistic and real looking. So it is hard for me to articulate the artificiality of the animals, other than to say they just looked artificial, which seems inadequate as an explanation.
Yeah, so I think I can say it's not my favorite animal animation style,
Hmm.
but maybe we've been spoiled by Disney, and I prefer a more hand-drawn look to animation when I can get it. But it didn't stop me. Like I didn't want to like walk out of the theater or anything
Yeah,
because of it.
yeah, and if that's the difference between getting a beautiful ambient story like this and not getting it, like that barrier is, do I come from a giant studio or do I not? Like, I'm very grateful that they were able to produce this in an open source way on whatever budget they had because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Right. So, in your opinion, what makes this okay or good for kids?
I have a feeling there are two very different ways this can go. Either your kids are into the vibes or
Yeah.
they are bored by the vibes. And I mean, toss a coin as to which it's going to be with any individual, with any family. It very much worked with mine. So I think it's good for kids. I think in all the panic literature about screen time and attention spans, this is maybe exactly the kind of content that you want to be exposing your kids to. Things that reward sustained attention and really make you think and maybe even start conversations in a way that a more traditional yuck, yuck, yuck plot structure maybe doesn't.
I agree. What do you think makes this inappropriate or otherwise bad for kids?
Can I go back to the first question just for a second?
Sure.
Okay, so do you remember early pandemic when we had friend of the pod Amy Padden on to talk about Spaceballs?
Yeah.
And she talked about how when she watches things with objectionable content with her kids, she feels free to pause the movie in the middle of what's happening and have a larger conversation with them about what's going on screen.
Hmm.
And I said openly that I found it very difficult to do that because my kids were young enough that like they were just getting used to following a whole plot, and I found like pausing it would stop whatever momentum we had, and then they would get distracted and blah blah blah. We talked so much during this movie because again there weren't specific plot beats, so we could pause to have conversations about like, oh, what would it feel like if a friend did that to you? Or what do you think is happening here? Or why do you think so and so just ran off by themselves? Or even like, why do you think this flood is happening? We had so much more of a conversation than we usually do during things that we watched. And I really appreciated that. Again, I can see it going totally the other way for other families, and maybe the grown-ups involved being really annoyed by all the questions. But for us, it really worked.
Did you actually pause it or?
No,
Okay.
there was enough that was just we were watching, we were absorbing, but we could have a conversation while the movie was going on that did not distract from our experience, I thought.
Yeah, that's a good point. My kids like to talk a lot during movies and shows, which can get like annoying because you're like missing dialogue.
Right.
So this was a good one to talk through for sure.
Did you watch it with all your kids?
No, just with Libby.
Okay. And they were a fan?
Yep.
Yeah, I watched it with both of my kids and they both were. But again, it's also because I wasn't policing the experience. I wasn't like, not that I would tell my kids to shut up, but I wasn't like, hush, you're not supposed to talk now, or pausing or getting exasperated with them for talking. So I thought that really helped them take it as they wanted to take it.
Yeah, totally.
So I assume you watched it at home or did you go to the theater?
No, we just streamed it.
Right, right. And so did we. We got it on Prime, but I think as of this recording, you can get it on any of the services where you would buy streaming video, Apple, Prime, wherever else.
Anything in here that makes it inappropriate for kids?
Again, I just feel like everything is a coin flip. Either your kids are into the vibes or they're not. Either you're into kids talking during the plot or you're not. Like, I don't think there's anything that makes it inappropriate other than the larger fact that, like, clearly there's been some apocalypse, but how much apocalyptic content are our kids already consuming?
Right. Right. Yeah, and there are some tense moments, but it's not ever violent or super scary. So I think it's good for the younger viewers.
Yes, exactly. No head under the blanket moments for my 6-year-old. And can I just say, Cat is a black cat. Even though a lot of the plot description said that Cat was gray, I would argue that Cat is a black cat. We happen
Yeah.
to have a black cat at home. Her name is Snuggles. So the whole time we were talking about the movie, we referred to Cat as Snuggles, which I thought was
Oh,
a
that's
really
cute.
cute way for like the kids to emotionally connect with what was going on.
Totally.
Do you think we should move on to our evergreen questions?
Let's do it.
What movie or show for adults were you able to compare this to?
I mean, The Last of Us came to mind
Like we said,
because
a
they're,
lot of apocalyptic content available right now.
yeah, I mean, I think there's like a new season of that coming out, so it's kind of in my head anyway, and it's a journey across a very much transformed landscape,
Right.
found family. Yeah. How about you?
Well, potentially at the risk of being too obvious, I thought of the Kevin Costner classic Waterworld.
Oh, yeah, of
Have
course.
you ever seen that
Yeah.
movie, Deborah?
No, I haven't seen it.
Possibly worth a watch now that like enough time has passed for it to be kind of camp. Whereas
Yeah,
where
okay.
when it was released at first it was like Kevin Costner hot on the tails of Dances with Wolves and whatever his other big subsequent movie was. So it was anticipated to be this giant successful blockbuster, and then it was just so weird and bad in so many ways. But it might have come right back around to being funny, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I should watch it sometime.
Tricky question. Were you able to cast a gritty HBO reboot?
Well, I would, I mean, this is tough, but I would take one of those really overdone plastic surgery, like reality stars,
Uh-huh.
like who, some women get so much filler in their cheeks that they start to look cat-like.
Mm-hmm.
So I would take one of them who has had, their every need catered to, and I would put them on a boat with like a hodgepodge of humanity. So, I mean, I think that actually probably is a reality show somewhere.
I like this so much. That is very creative. I was kind of tied up in the apocalypse landscape of all of it because,
Hmm.
again, like you mentioned with The Last of Us and also other series like The Walking Dead and the million Walking Dead spin-offs, we just have so much apocalypse content out there right now for adults that arguably is the gritty HBO reboot of this. And I thought to really zag would be to do adults finding a family and trying to survive in an apocalyptic landscape, but somehow have that hopeful spin to it that this does. Like, that would be the challenge of
Hmm.
making this for adults.
Okay, I like that.
Do you think it was better when we were kids?
Oh my gosh, that movie with the dog. Oh gosh, I should have written it down.
Incredible
Um,
Journey?
yeah, with the cat and the dog.
Yeah, the cat and two dogs.
The cat and two dogs. Okay.
Or maybe
That
you're thinking Milo and Otis. Wasn't that a cat and a dog? We had some unlikely friendship cat dog movies as kids.
so maybe better than when we were kids.
Definitely more thoughtful. Probably better for the grown-ups. I don't think the
Hmm.
grown-ups really enjoyed sitting down and watching Milo and Otis or The Incredible Journey as much, although still cried.
Hmm. Yeah, totally.
Would you ever watch this movie alone voluntarily?
I don't think so, but I would recommend it for other families to watch together. How about you?
Yeah, I were I at a period of time when I was watching more movies or TV by myself? Then maybe because like I said I really enjoyed the vibes, but for me it's not going to be a repeat on my own.
Yeah.
Ratings?
I would give this one a 4.5. I thought it was really well done.
Deborah, oh my gosh, same rating.
Wow, nice.
We don't even have to calculate an average. See it or skip it.
I would see it.
See it for sure.
Thanks for listening to our review of Flow. Next week, we'll be back with a conversation about screen time in the news. If you enjoyed our show today, please recommend the show to a friend that you think would enjoy it too, so that we can grow our community of parents for sanity in screen time. You can head over to our website, myscreentime2.com, to subscribe for updates and get news about new episodes. Tune in next time for more real talk about the movies and TV we watch with our kids because we have to and sometimes because we like to. Bye.
Bye.
Screen time, screen time, screen time.